So let's take a look at how to actually solve using 67 grams of sodium, how to actually get the grams of sodium chloride that we're looking for. Again, we're going to take the 67 grams of sodium and we're going to put that over 1 to start. Now we're going to have to multiply that by a conversion factor. So we're going to take a look, and on the bottom is whatever the unit that we had on the top of the previous step. So I had grams of sodium chloride up on the top in this step here. I'm going to have to take the grams and sodium chloride, put it on the bottom in my next step so that these two steps cancel out. Now if we look all the way back at our flow chart, what we're actually doing here is we are starting out here in my mass, and I'm starting out in grams of sodium chloride. Specifically, I have 67 grams, and we're looking to figure out, well, how many grams of the sodium chloride can I make? So I'm starting out with grams of sodium, and I have to take this first step here and go to moles of sodium. Once I'm in moles of sodium, I can use my balanced equation to go to moles of sodium chloride, and then go back out to grams of sodium chloride. Let's do this first conversion, and it says to do this, 1 mole is going to be equal to the molar mass from the periodic table. So I'm trying to change my grams of sodium chloride to moles of sodium chloride. Let's take a look at how. Now, what I want to do is take a look at my periodic table. I'm going to zoom in on sodium, which is right here. It has a mass of 22.99. A little hard to read there. What that tells me is that 1 mole of sodium has a mass of 23 grams. I want to use that conversion factor in this step here. As I go from grams of sodium into moles of sodium, I'll use this conversion factor that we just looked up. So how do I want to do this? Well, we said that 1 mole, and that's what I want to have on top, that's what I'm trying to go to, 1 mole of sodium is equal to, and we wrote in 23 grams. That's what that came from, 23 grams. That came from the periodic table. So this value here came from the periodic table. Now we got to keep going because I want to get to the grams of sodium chloride. So what I'm going to take a look at now is how to go from moles of sodium to moles of sodium chloride. So let's go back to that flow chart real quick and take a look at where we're at. We are now doing this step. I'm going from moles of sodium to moles of sodium chloride, and it says I have to use the mole ratio from the balanced equation. So what I need to do is take a look at this balanced equation and figure out what's going to go on top and what's going to go on the bottom. Well, the bottom part's easy. We should know that the part that's going to go on the bottom is whatever part I had on top in the previous step. So because I had moles of Na up on top, I want to put my moles of Na down on the bottom for the next step. And we just said we want to go from moles of Na to moles of NaCl, so I want to put moles of NaCl up on the top. Now this part here, it said came from the balanced equation. So this part right here, I want to take the numbers from my equation. Well, in my equation, I have a 2 next to the Na, so that's what I'm going to put next to my Na. I'm going to put a 2 next to my Na, and in the equation up here, I had a 2 next to the NaCl, so I'm also going to put a 2 next to the NaCl. And this actually gets me to the moles of NaCl. So right now, looking at this, I've canceled out this step, this step, this step, and this step, and now I'm in the moles of NaCl where I want to be. We have one final step, and we're going to do it the same way that we did before. I want to get to grams of NaCl. So I got to take one more step here. I'm actually just going to put it down on the next line here. So just kind of moving it down so I don't run out of room. Draw an arrow just so you guys remember. I'm going to go from here now to this step over here. And what I want to do is the same thing I did before. I'm going to pull the molar mass from the periodic table. So I had the moles of NaCl up on top. That means I got to put it down on the bottom in my next step. And we are trying to get to grams of NaCl, so I want to put that up on top. Now, just like when we got this conversion, we had to take it from the periodic table. We're going to have to do that again. So let's take a look at the masses from the periodic table. We already looked at sodium before. Now we have sodium chloride, so we're just going to be adding those masses together. But sodium had a mass of 23, so Na was equal to 23. And chlorine, now we're using as well because we have sodium chloride, has a mass of 34.45. And I want to round that just to 35. That's what I like to do when I use chlorine. So chlorine, we're going to round to 35.5. So for NaCl, I have 23 and 35.5. I just want to add these together to get 58.5. So my conversion for this step is that 1 mole of NaCl is equal to 58.5 grams of NaCl. And that's what I want to plug in here. So I want to put the 1 next to the mole because that's what I have. And up on top, we just calculated that it was 58.5 grams of NaCl. So now we want to go ahead and we want to do the math. So let's take a look here. Now when I do the math, my first step is to multiply all the numbers that are on top. 67, 1, 2, and the 58.5. So let's do that. 67 times 1 times 2 times 58.5. And when I do that, I get 7,839. That's what I have up on top. Now for the bottom, I want to do the same thing. 1, 23, 2, and 1. And when I do that, I'll have 46 down the bottom. So now I want to take these two numbers and divide them to figure out my answer. And when I do that, I got a value of 170.4, and let's just go to 2 decimals, 41 grams of NaCl. So that's what I'm looking for, 170.41 grams of NaCl from my 67 grams of sodium. Hopefully that was just a good review, going from grams to moles, moles of sodium to moles of sodium chloride, and then back out to grams of NaCl. You have another one to try out using now the value of chlorine.